Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Be2Lead conversation. Today, I have a great honor and privilege to have here with us Liz Becker. Liz Becker is the president and founder of National Association of Divorce Professionals and communication skills coach and trainer. What a treat. Welcome, Liz, to this Be2Lead conversation. It is an honor to have you here.
Oh, it's an honor, just as much as an honor to be here with you, Barbara. Thank you for having me.
And I am looking so much forward to hear you sharing your story. And the first question, without further ado, is who is Liz Becker? Can you briefly introduce yourself? Who is Liz Becker?
So, do you have about 4 hours on this call, or is it because
Please,
I'll have to get back to you on that so I can figure out who I am. I was just asking myself the other day.
just a very
Oh God,
simple question.
yeah, to ask a question like that to someone who likes to break down things and see things. Oh my goodness. Let's see if I were to put it in a few words of who's Liz Becker. Well, I am a single mother. I don't necessarily like saying single mother because my son's father is involved in his life, but I am a single mother of an almost 18-year-old son who is an entrepreneur as well, who has great passion in making change to things in the world that I think can be easily changed. Uh,
Mhm.
so I'm not going to focus on the stuff that's really complicated. I like the stuff that's easy to change that people think is complicated.
Yes.
I'm someone that loves life. I love to love all those around me, and I have great gratitude in my life. Being the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, I've been raised with that. So
Mm.
I just like I, I I love to give, teach, and know that at some point I could leave some kind of legacy behind to others. So I think that's me in a nutshell. I mean, aside from like hip hop dancing once a week.
You did a great job to squeeze it in a few minutes.
Go.
So, Liz, as I was mentioned before, you are the founder of the National Association of Divorce Professionals. So you are working in a very specific niche and very important, unfortunately, today.
Yes.
So, what you do, who you are today, is it who you have always wanted to be, or life took you into a place that actually you did not imagine you would have ended up to?
Yeah. It's a great question, and I think it's really a combination of both. I don't think anybody ever, depending on what age you are in life, I don't think you're ever exactly what you want to be, and I think that you end up in places both by plan and by chance. There's so many variables of how you get to somewhere. With me, I think that again, it's a combination of both. I always knew in my life that I wanted to first and foremost love what I do. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted, having worked in corporate America, I wanted the experience of it all. I didn't want to make decisions in my life that I didn't have the actual experience first. So I
Mm,
never set myself, when I was in high school, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to be. Even when I started in college, I didn't know exactly, I had an idea of what I liked, what I was passionate about. But one thing, what I did know is that I wanted to experience something first before I decided if that's what I wanted or not.
mhm,
I didn't want to do it the reverse and decide what I want, then experience, and then decide, well,
mm,
that's not
mm,
what I want right now. So then I'm going to pivot. So I wanted to make sure that my life was very rich with experiences before I really set path of where I wanted to go. And then at some point, when you have that, decision, once you've experienced it, once you know, then I think chance plays a part as well. Where you are, who you're with, um, is going to direct your path. So, in reference to if I were to sort of break it down, things that I love, I always loved psychology. So
mhm,
if you ask me where I am right now in what I like to do, I do love neuroscience. I love teaching. I love communication skills. I'm passionate. So, yes, I did see myself when I was younger in that realm. I saw myself as an entrepreneur. Did I think I was going to be or founding a national association? No, not necessarily in that aspect. That came about more by chance than by direct planning. But fundamentally, I think ending up in the position of making a change to a process or impacting a process that was very challenging was also something that I saw myself doing, because that's what makes me happy. Like I said, I knew I wanted to do something that I loved. I didn't know I was going to get divorced. But I was young.
Well,
So
after all,
right?
you needed the experience first. You said it, right?
Exactly. I needed to get married first, so no, I didn't know that I would be in that specific industry.
Yeah.
But if you were to look at it from a much farther lens and looking from above and looking down, if I were to pick what things I expected in my life, I would say something within the psychology, within communication skills, within making a difference for others. From a young age, I was always the one that even people that were older than me they were asking for advice. They were asking for guidance, and I always wanted. I would immediately offer and volunteer help, advice to guide somebody. So in that aspect, yeah, I would say I am where I expected myself to be.
And if you look back now from this position, and you could identify a few, 1, 2, 3 key moments, sliding door moments that actually changed the course of your life, what would you say? What can you share with us a couple of these moments that actually, if you had chosen differently, you wouldn't be here? And maybe if you were aware that that was a pivotal moment for you in your career.
Sure. Wow, that's a great question, because I think I've had so many pivotal moments to narrow it down. It's challenging. I think that clearly the first pivotal moment would have been my divorce, because I would have never thought of entering the divorce space per se, so specific, if it wasn't for my experience with the way my divorce went, or how I handled my divorce and how I helped others through their divorce post my divorce. So I think that was a pivotal moment. I think my training in NLP, in neuro-linguistic programming, was a very pivotal moment at which I understood the ease, how I started off this conversation. I like helping people where they think something is complicated and will take a lot to overcome or to correct or to better themselves. There are ways that you can do it that are quite quick. And that was NLP, even though I'd studied it my entire life, not my life since I was a child, but definitely my entire adulthood. And I was always fascinated by it for that exact reason. So I think when I first got trained and went through my actual training after having read it and sort of self-taught myself and actually done the training, that was pivotal for me. That this is definitely something that I think everybody needs to know. And whatever I do, I will make sure that I incorporate that, whether it's personal or professional, regardless of industry, regardless of what it is, that I would be incorporating that. So I think those are two very pivotal moments that led me to where I am right now in reference to being the president of an association and also a trainer teaching.
And if you had to identify, Liz, I want to dig a little bit deeper. As a woman that went through a divorce and then the first event and the second one, right, the NLP training, what would you say were the key resources that you had to bring about in those experiences? I know that they are very different, right? And I don't know if the divorce, for example, was a choice or it just happened to you, and therefore it is different, right? What resources? So what were the challenges therefore that you had to overcome, or the resources that you put in place in order to actually enhance those situations for so that they could become an opportunity for you, and
Sure.
therefore a big pivotal moment. That was
I think it's different in every situation in the sense of what your present resources are or how you've been raised, for example.
mm-hmm.
So I think that in order to, if I mean, this is about leadership, right? And women leadership, we're talking about those areas. To be able to do what I've done, you have to have some sense of leadership skills or the ability to be a leader. And I think within that lies a tremendous amount of independence,
Mm-hmm.
that you have to have that independence to be able to be a leader. And
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, you have to be able to be flexible and know when and where or who to reach out to as a resource. So when you have the capacity of having both in your life, then you holistically can become a better leader. And if you don't have either one of those and only have one at that moment, you use it as the best to the best of your ability.
Mm.
So maybe I can clarify that a little bit. I was
Please.
raised in a house where I was the only child in the house. I have a half sister and had a half brother. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. They didn't live with me. They were from my father's previous marriage, but we always grew up very close, all of us, even with my sister's mother, biological mother. We were all very close, but I was alone at home. And there were times in which I had to be independent in many ways. I was supported all the time. I had parents that were extremely supportive of what I did, which clearly led, I think, to me being able to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
Although everybody's different, right? You can have
Yes.
one behavior that results in two completely different ways. Someone that is continuously supported could end up being very codependent. So it depends on the beliefs that I had based on my reality. So having a
Mm.
father that was a Holocaust survivor and had overcome the most difficult, challenging possible situation in anybody can fathom to imagine, and come
Mm-hmm.
out of it, not only come out of it, but be able to live a healthy and happy life and have smile and have, be able to joke and laugh and just live, was fundamentally something that created the sense of strength in me, which gave me my independence or helped build my independence. So having said that, that is what helped me know that I could be a leader, that I don't have to be codependent. Now, once you have that independence, that is
Mm-hmm.
great. So,
Mm.
that pivotal moment of being able to make the decision to get divorced, you really need two things. You need to have that sense of independence
Mm.
that you will be okay, even if you're on your
Mm.
own, you don't have anybody around you. And at the same time, it takes a village. So you need support and
Mm.
having that support. So being able to go to, in this situation, I can handle this myself. And in this situation, I'm going to need somebody. And if there
Mm.
isn't anybody in my life, I need to find that person.
Mm.
Now, without having that independence first, you wouldn't be able to do the second part, right?
Mm. Mm.
So that's where I think that ability and the skills to know that you can count on yourself
Mm. Mm.
is primary to that pivotal
Mm.
moment. Does that make
So
sense?
it does total sense. And what would you say? Because you have been fortunate that you have learned this independence at home in your family, right? What would you invite people that maybe do not have that situation, women that need to learn to be independent, but they have not a supported family, or they haven't had a supporting family, or maybe they never thought about it and they don't even know if they are independent or not, right?
Yeah.
So how would you, according to your experience, how can we learn to become more independent so that we can face our situation in the way you have faced yours?
Sure. I think everybody has the ability and has core independence trait. I mean, as human beings, we are built that way, um, physiologically. Uh, After in adulthood, not as children, of course, you have to be dependent to be fed. Humans. So I think that understanding what independence means or lack thereof is more important.
Mm.
And I tend to find that most people, or most women, that lack independence is simply because they have a fear of not being able to handle a situation on their own. That's simply what not having independence or lack of independence and being codependent is, the opposite of independence.
Mm.
So they would have to sit there and think, if I could have anything in my life, if I could have any skill, if I could have any superpower, if I can have any ability possible that would give me some sense of confidence that I could handle this situation, what would it be? And the minute that you have that, you're leading yourself in the direction of being independent, because we all have the resources within us. Most of the time, when you think of something, you can find it in you, whatever that source would be. I used to always, when I had my coaching practice, so prior to the NADP, I was a coach. And as you mentioned, I am an NLP coach and trainer. And right now I specialize in training professionals to become better divorce professionals and communicate more effectively. But prior to NADP, I coached for many years. And one of the things that I would tell women, I would say, if I gave you this pill, this magical pill that gave you the ability to cope with any situation that arises at that moment, you may not make the best decision, you may make a bad decision, you may make it worse, but at that moment, you will be able to cope with it. Is there anything that you would be afraid of doing alone? And the answer is no. Well, if that pill is magic, then no. And really, that pill is you. That pill is just whatever you want it to be. You just have to know what it is and have a deeper dive into yourself as to what is stopping you from feeling independent. At the end of the day, life is just a collection of moments. It's a collection of different experiences. It's a collection of good and bad things that are going to happen to you at the moment. What matters and what independence really relies on is how you yourself, by yourself, with nobody around you, is going to cope at that moment with that experience. Sure. So that's what I would recommend.
It's very interesting also, because so often I think that we take for granted that we are or not independent. I think it is not so common to focus on this particular skill, allow me to call it a skill, to be independent. And I think that, and thank you for bringing this up, Liz, because I think that we women, we need to pay attention to it, because the way we are brought up, I think in many different countries, it is almost everywhere the same. It's a little bit of generalization, but we tend not to focus on independence because we are born in a situation where we belong to a place, and often, at least I'm speaking from the culture I know best, what we are invited to think in our life is, anyway, you will be part of a family, you will probably get married. And so the concept of independence somehow, I think, slips away. We don't focus it. So thank you for bringing it up as an important element of actually what builds also our career as women in leadership.
Absolutely. And it's an oxymoron, right? Because if you think about it, if anything, people are codependent on women, children on their mothers, boys and girls, either way. You're codependent all your life on your mother, on taking care of you. And then all of a sudden, what is that switch into the real world that a woman actually says, oh no, I can't do this by myself?
Yeah.
Where does that happen? And that's solely, we can blame society as much as we want. We can blame, I don't like to be a blamer. I don't like to blame men. I don't think that, I don't think that's healthy either. I think men have their own challenges in their own world and in their own ways of being. I'm not saying that every man's a saint, just as every woman is not a saint. I think that when you look at it again from up above and you break it down, what is the difference that made that difference, that a woman is so confident in knowing that people are dependent on her in running a household, in going to school, in doing her job? What is that part that she's not confident in being a leader, and that she feels that she needs to be dependent on somebody else rather than taking that step? And listen, there's of course certain character traits that you must have to be an effective leader. Yeah. No doubt about that. And that doesn't have to do with being a woman or a man. That has to do with you, yourself, how you represent yourself in the world, how you process your reality, and what meanings you're making about everything. That's all that it comes down to.
Mhm. And from that perspective, therefore, Liz, if you had to share with us some of the key challenges that you had to face on your path to leadership of where you are today, what were those challenges and how did you overcome them?
You know, it's funny. It's hard to ask that question to a person that doesn't necessarily look at things as challenges.
Mhm.
Once again, I look at things as an experience. I gain,
Mm.
I get the feedback, and I move forward because I don't think that things are necessarily challenges. They're just situations that you need to cope with. Are they going to turn out great? Are they going to be harder? I think people tend to represent a challenge as something that is hard. I
Mm.
think everything can be hard. Everything can be
Mhm.
difficult. You know, it's no secret that I work a lot, and that can be looked at as hard, right? Um, I think challenges most likely would be if I were to break it down, and things that take more time is balance. And I think this is something that many women, many leaders, many entrepreneurial women have problems with, right? That balance between so many different things, whether it's a balance between um, life, your life and work and home and children, if you
Mm.
have them, or family and how much time you give. And I'm definitely one that believes that you can achieve balance without having your time split up, you know, exactly proportionately. I think time is not related to balance in your mind. You could technically feel, if you assess yourself, that you haven't had any kind of relationship or you're not dedicating enough time to family or to friends. Let's say long lost friends that you haven't spoken to in a long time. It doesn't mean that you now have to dedicate half of your day to friends. You could literally make one phone call a week, and then all of a sudden you feel balanced in that area of your life. So even the word balance is tricky. But if I were to break it down as a leader and what's challenged me the most, I think it's two things that have been able to ground me. The balance between in decision making or in execution would be in minimizing my need for perfectionism, but also understanding that slow and steady wins the race. So it is that balance. And this is what I've learned the most, I think, and
Mhm.
it's just
Mhm.
this year,
Sure.
that if I have two contradictory beliefs that are guiding each one of my decisions or actions or behaviors, it would be good enough and slow and steady win the race, because those sort of contradict each other. So I am
Mm.
able to be okay if something takes me a little longer than expected. That's okay. But I also don't want something to take me way too long because I'm so focused on perfectionism.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And that is the balance for me that's overcome the challenge that I've experienced, quite frankly, up until this year,
Mm.
that has helped me overcome a lot of situations that I needed.
Beautiful. And so, look, reflecting on what you have just said, I have a couple of questions for you. The first is how could what could we do to, you said it first, right, when I asked the question, well, that question is difficult because I don't see the world through the lens of challenges. But for
Right.
me, challenges are experiences. So it's very interesting because sometimes we move from looking at the situation with problems, then problems are challenges, and now you are inviting us to see challenges as experiences. So if you had to teach us, how do we in a short time move from problem challenges to experiences, and therefore the way we experience the world changes completely? What would you invite us to do?
Yeah, and that's really a filter of semantics, right? It's just changing semantics in language, and if we're looking at it semantically, it's changing your actual language.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to look at a situation, it's let's failure. It's the same thing that when you hear all the time, how someone will look at something either as failure or you'll look at it as feedback. If you're looking at it as failure, you may start making meanings to something that gets you into a rabbit hole that will affect your emotional state, which is not the place where you want to be as a leader. However, if you look at something as feedback, that is going to do reverse. You're taking that information based on that experience that clearly was some kind of challenge for you from before. It's an experience that you did not get the result that you want, or that you're having trouble making a decision on based on that experience. Usually challenges, there's going to be some kind of decision made if you're having a challenge with something. Right? Throw any challenge out there that's going to be based on your actions. There's going to have to be a decision made before that action even happens. And that decision is really going to rely on the meaning that you're making about this experience. So I think that ultimately what you would want to do is know that from that, when you're starting off, whatever experience you're having, you are going to take that experience, you're going to collect information, mostly at a sensory level. too much analysis on it. See what it is that you need to move forward, what resources you need. So this goes back to the independence. What resources do you need to overcome this experience and get the result that you want? And then if you have it within you, awesome. And if you don't have it within you, find it elsewhere.
Beautiful.
And that's what's going to just get you to sort of do this dance. I like saying that I teach people how to dance, not actual literal dance, but dance life.
And the first step of the dance is therefore for those who are maybe not so familiar with this, is start to paying attention what language you are using, not only when we speak with people, but also the language we use to talk to ourselves, right? Because that becomes extremely important to overcome challenges that therefore are not challenges anymore, because they are enriching experiences somehow, right? Very excellent.
And you know what, Barbara, honestly, I think it's okay. It's contextual. So if you've overcome a challenge and you want to talk to someone about how you overcame that challenge, then that sounds very different than, you know what, I'm really challenged with this right now, Barbara. So when you use challenge in the present or future, I think it holds a lot more power. And when you use challenge in the past, it holds a positive power, meaning, right, you're taking it at like, I've overcome this. So it's contextual, just like behavior is contextual. So semantics are contextual also. Whatever you think is going to work in putting you in the right emotional state to be successful, to lead, to move forward, then do just that. And you can switch your language according to what you're doing.
Absolutely. And Liz, in learning these and applying it to your career and to what you have created as an entrepreneur, learning to balance, as you said before, right, the way you relate to time, so the urgency of doing things and doing it perfectly versus trusting that in time you will achieve something that is exactly what needs to be done, right? Learning these are important steps that are inner steps. Did you have mentors or role models that supported you in these? And if you did, who were they? People in your life? Did you ask for help directly? What was the experience there?
So I think that role models is a very tricky thing, and mentors is a very tricky thing, because just like I said before at the beginning, that I like basing where I'm going on experience. I also really like my role models to be people that I have direct experiences with. I think it's a little bit dangerous when so many people use role models that they don't know who they are, right? So someone, let's say I'm an entrepreneur, of course I want to be successful like all of the women that we know in history or present that are highly successful, that are on the top of Forbes, on the top of the Forbes list, and that have done so many incredible things. And that's lovely to a degree, but you have no clue what their experience is, how they've gotten there, what their thought process was. So it's very hard for them to be a role model per se. You may actually meet them in person and realize that you have absolutely nothing in common with them, that you really didn't like the intention that they had in getting there. You didn't like the things that they did to be able to get to where they're going. And it could be anybody, man, woman, it doesn't matter. It's just a role model. So I prefer to look at the role models that have been in my life were people that I trusted,
Mm-hmm.
that I rarely make a decision on my own. Rarely, even though I know I could, I don't want to, because I don't know everything. No matter what stage in life I will ever be, I like feedback. I love feedback. And that's where the good enough, that I was able to get that balance of good enough. Because if I think something is not good enough, but I present it to three other people that I respect and that I trust, and it doesn't mean they could be the same level of me, they could be someone that isn't even, within the same industry as me, that I value their feedback tremendously. They don't have to be they don't have to have achieved a certain amount of success for me to look at them as a role model that I trust, that I know that have made some wise decisions in their life that maybe I struggled with, and that I can put that. And if they say, "Oh, Liz, that's good enough," I get it. If they understand, then it's good enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that not every situation, of course, you have to know what that is. But so to me, those are role models. To me, anybody in my life that has, we're talking about the decision making, that's been my biggest obstacles or experiences that I needed to overcome to be okay with the decisions that I was making, right? So that you're not doing something they're like, oh, I wish I shoulda, coulda, woulda, that shoulda, coulda, woulda. That's replayed a lot in my life. I don't know about you, but in mine,
Yes.
it
They're in
pops
good
up
company
on a daily basis. And so my son reminds me, like, Mom, stop it. It's done. It happened. So for me, I think that when you have those people, so I see people in my past that I know don't have that haven't achieved tremendous success, but when they make a decision, they are so confident about it, and they're okay with the decision that they made. And even if it doesn't turn out right, they move on. And to me, that's a role model. It's amazing. So those are the people there's so many in my life that I wouldn't be able to pinpoint them, but a lot of the people that I work with now, even the members of my association, even the students that I'm training, I look at them as role models as well. So many of them to just be doing what they're doing.
I think it is amazing what you're saying, because actually it is not so easy to ask for feedback in order to be supported in making decision, but not because you cannot make it by yourself, because you do not want to make it by yourself, because you know that there is more that you can learn and know and find out by asking others. And here I see two qualities: being humble to recognize that, oh, I cannot know everything, and so it's better if someone else supports and help me with this, and there's nothing wrong with that. And therefore asking feedback, it is not humiliating, because I believe that lots of women do not, and I'm specifically mentioning women, because we do not ask questions, we do not ask for feedback, and we tend to want to make decisions by ourselves because we need to somehow to demonstrate and show that we know, that we are capable, that we do not need. And I think that this is an area where we women need to grow. We do need to. And what is your experience on this? You seem to be very comfortable with this.
Absolutely. And I think the answer is you have to do both. If you are a leader that is continuously asking everybody for feedback and you don't make any decision on your own, or you don't have anything to add to the conversation when that feedback is given, then you're not going to be seen as a leader. So I don't think it's not an all or nothing situation. I think that you have to be able to pivot and go from one to the other. So you definitely have to be able to make some decisions on your own. You have to be making the final decision, but you have to be able to lead. You have to be able to be giving whatever product you're giving that you're asking feedback needs to reflect your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience that constitutes you being in the position that you're in. So it can't be an either or situation. It's a both situation. And it's interesting of what you're saying, because there's two things that if I were to look at others and see other people that are trying to become a leader, or people that are trying to, women, I'm not going to say people, women that are trying to be seen and heard, one of the things that is the biggest mistake that they're making is assumptions. Assuming that they are being represented a certain way, assuming that someone thinks something about them, assuming that their idea is not good enough, or that it is way too good, or that it's the best thing since sliced bread. The best way to communicate effectively and get yourself to a point of leadership is to not assume, is to
Mm,
ask questions, is to find out the nitty gritty, just like you're doing with me here today, and
mm,
doing that with your staff, doing that with people that you do trust, those role models. Like I like to say, my role models are people that I have experience, that I have at my reach. Because having a role model that is not within your reach is not a role model. It really is. It's just like, what's the difference? We talk about all the time in the self-development world. What's the difference between a dream and a goal? Right? It's having it down on a timeline, putting it down. So it's the same thing. It has to be solid. It has, your role model should be someone that you can talk to, which is really what mentorship is. But that
mm,
mentor too is going to be very different if that mentor is up here and you're down here. It's different. It's very
mm,
different because they could be giving, unless that mentor really knows how to teach you their skills
mm,
effectively,
mm, mm,
they can guide you, they can give you all the information, all the knowledge in the world. If you don't have the practical skills to achieve them like they did, then mentorship doesn't do you any good. I literally just made a post about this on LinkedIn. It's so funny that we're talking about it. I literally just made a post about, I came
mm,
up with this term. I don't know if it makes sense to people. It did to me, that I said, how did I say it? I said, knowledge is wealth, but being able to apply it is worth.
mm,
So, how good is it to have a mentor that's just spewing out everything that they've done, and this is great, and that it's so inspirational that they've achieved this? But if you can't apply what
mm,
they've taught you into whatever you're doing
mm,
effectively, if they
mm,
haven't told you how to do that, the proper
mm,
application, they're really not a mentor. They're just somebody. And I've seen a lot of this. I've seen a
mm.
lot of people. I think that the mentorship thing could be a little bit of an ego thing also. So I'll stick to the role models.
In your experience, did you actively look for mentors and role models, or it was just something in that you learned by simply being next to certain people? Was it something formal? How was that relationship
So I
like?
think when you're going into leadership, if you were to, it depends how much time you have at the end of the day.
Mm,
True mentorship takes a lot of time and takes a lot of dedication. And I think it is very valuable if you're right at the beginning stages to be part of some kind of mentorship program. And I was part of a few mentorship programs. And I'm not going to lie, some of them were good. And most of them gave me an understanding of what needs to be done, but it didn't give me the practical application to do it. I had
mm,
to give that to myself, and I had to bring people that were working with me to be
mm,
able to apply what I
mm,
knew had to happen. And I'm still learning. I mean, nobody knows small. I'm still on that learning journey every day,
mm,
because there's always the ability to growth, and there's always going to be different situations. I definitely do think that it is beneficial to have someone that can guide you. But what my recommendation would be is to really break down, not in general, this big mentorship. Let's say you're going to be the, CEO, you want to be the CEO of a company. So you want to have a mentorship with the CEO, and that's wonderful and that's great. But you should be able to make a list and break that down as to what specifically you find you need help with within this mentorship, not this general mentorship, because your mentor may not be a coach.
yeah.
They may be an extremely successful CEO of a company within the same industry, but
Mm,
they, coaching their specific skills that you have to get to that nitty gritty. So you want to help them. You want to be
yeah.
able to help that mentor give you the information that you need so that you can apply it.
Yeah.
So that would be my recommendation. Yes, find a mentor that's somewhere, or someone that you can learn from, or an educator, or it doesn't may not have to be someone that you consider a mentor, but someone that knows what you need to learn to get to where you need to go as a leader, and make sure that you're being very specific with what it is that you need.
Yeah. And to do that, which is a very powerful invitation and suggestion, we do need to spend some time to know ourselves, right? Because without that, there is no support on the outside, because we don't even know what to ask for and what do we actually need. So on your experience and what you have shared with us today, it seems like that is a presupposition, right? We need to do the work to know ourselves first if we want to learn the independence, if we want to build our career, if you want to work on our language, the way we feel and how we balance our decision making and everything, right?
Yeah.
I have two more questions, Liz. I'm aware of the time. It's very precious what you're saying. So the first one is, again, looking at your experience, what you have created, what you went through. We hear so much about the different experience between men and women, right? So if you look back at your experience, for sure you have worked with men as well with women. If you had to invite male colleagues, people, men that you know and that have leadership position, to do something differently in order to change the way also the experience of leadership for women is, what would you invite them to do differently?
There's definitely a lot that can be done, whether in the corporate world or in the entrepreneurial world. I think we've gotten to a pretty good stage that many men do realize how successful women are as leaders and as entrepreneurs. And I think a lot of people are now, a lot of men are starting to invest in that, knowing that women are amazing. I mean, we're incredible leaders. We're innately incredible leaders. So I think that you would have to understand, if we're looking more in, let's say, a corporate environment where I would want to give advice to male leadership in how they can encourage women, or they can help them or make it easier for women. This is going to stem, first of all, from them wanting to be able to even do this, right? They're going to have to want to do this. And I think that we need to understand and step back. What is it about men that they are maybe not giving these opportunities? Are there's not opportunities are not arising? And it's not necessarily just the man's fault. We started this conversation and you said something very true, that women tend to not ask. They tend to not ask for help, nor, not that I'm saying that they need to ask for help in the work environment. However, they don't speak up as much. They are less seen and less heard when they have their counterparts in the same organization that are men, and men are going to be most likely more seen and heard. And then you have the other aspect where you could have a man, let's say, that is in a leadership position that is choosing, or there are more men in leadership than women. And sometimes it's not necessarily the fact that they think the man is more capable of the job. I think that just on a human level, we like people that are similar around us, right? And women are the same way. Let's not change that. How great do you feel when you're part of a woman networking group of like badass women, and you're in a room of 20 powerful women? That feels awesome, because we tend to like similarity. That's just how we're built. We have this bias, this underlying subconscious bias, that we like people that are similar to us. And that doesn't change in the corporate world. So what I would ask a man to do is to consciously start stepping out of that zone of necessarily leaning towards what they feel comfortable with, because it's not their fault. It's not our fault that we feel more comfortable. You're going to feel more comfortable whether you're a woman or a man with someone that maybe you went to school with, someone that had the same upbringing, someone that is the same. This is just how we are simply built. And I know we talk a lot about biases now and everything. So if we step back in this level, I would say to a male leader, do me a favor and just consciously be aware that although it may be more comfortable for you to be in a room with 10 men, and that is not your fault that it is more comfortable, that is the way that we are built. This isn't a matter of blame, and you're not doing consciously, but make a conscious effort at bringing in women to the table. So looking out, because that woman most likely is not going above, and there are many that do, and I really do. This is going, I'm telling you, this is going against my teachings, because I try to separate judgment. I try to remove judgment and base everybody on their capabilities and what they are presenting to you. So I would rather teach women on how do you get yourself to be seen and heard than try to, force men, because that can happen naturally. If you interview any, and I'm sure you've interviewed many, any successful woman that has achieved a leadership position, they never let that get in their way. They never let a room full of 10 men stop them to achieve that. That's where I like to focus more on.
Sure.
But you're asking me a different question, so I'm going to answer it. And if I did have that man in front of me, I would say, please look out. Go beyond what you see in front. Look at the merits of your staff. Consciously look at the merits of your female staff if you're finding yourself that you're in a room of 10 men and 1 woman, or, in your company, and you do have staff that are just as capable. Or even go a step further and invest your time and effort at junior levels in giving those women the skills of everything that we're talking about today, of giving them the training that they need to, or the resources that they need to feel confident, independent, whatever you feel is lacking within your company.
Yeah. And I think that this is so precious and so powerful what you're saying. And already the first point you made is already powerful without these last two. And that is that being aware and awakened to the fact that there is some comfort in having a room that is 10 to 1. And realizing that you are experiencing a comfort that has become somehow invisible, that it is created by the number in these cases you mentioned. And I think that already becoming aware of this is so powerful, because if you are aware of it, then you start to, as you say, go beyond and notice that one person that is the number one in the room. And I think that already paying attention to this and deciding to somehow shake that comfort, it will be already a huge shift.
Yeah. And it depends on industry. There has to be the availability. So you can't take a CEO of an industry that is a man, that the majority of people in that industry that are actually studying for that position, for that job, are men, that women are not, so that they don't have the pool. Now you can say to that man, well, you know what, why don't you create a nonprofit or some kind of ability for those women? But I mean, really, how much is a man going to want to take that? The women have to take initiative of it. How many female plumbers do you know out there?
None,
right?
Actually.
So if you're going to expect, right, the CEO of a major plumbing company to hire more women, or there has to be the availability for him to do that. So we have to be reasonable in our expectations and take initiative where initiative lies, like the movement for coding and computer. That changed a lot, which is great. We need more women in coding. We need more, which I'm sure, if I don't know the statistic, but I'm sure if you look at the past 5 years, there has definitely been an increase in women in tech, in women in IT, in women in coding, because they got together and said, hey, the educational system got together. So that's where it starts, right? And I think there will organically be a lot more opportunity for women if that happens.
One last question, Liz. What would you say, and let's focus on women entrepreneurs.
Yes.
What would be the one piece of advice that you would give to women entrepreneurs of all ages that start and want to be entrepreneurs? What is the key element, the key skills that they need to pay attention to be successful in being an entrepreneur?
It's the same advice that I've given my son. It's the same advice that I would have given if I had a daughter. It's the same advice that I give, anybody in business. And I think the two qualities that you need to be a true leader, which you would need to be a true entrepreneur, is just patience and resilience. Those, I think, are the two qualities that you really, really need to have to be able to succeed. In anything. If you're lacking those two, you're not going to be able to be an entrepreneur. It's just not going to happen. And so I would reach out to educating yourself, to making sure you're 100% okay with dealing with a lot of fires, with having that resilience, that's not going to break you when you need to get up the next day and put out the next fire, and that you have to be patient for what it ultimately it is you're trying to achieve. Because if you have the resilience and you're patient, it will happen.
That's amazing. That's beautiful, Liz. Thank you so much. And before I let you go, how can people reach you if they want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about the association? Where do they find you?
Absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, first of all, at with Liz Becker. You can also reach me. My email address is liz@thenadp.com. So that's where you can email me. I may not answer immediately, but I promise you that I will answer at some point. And you can go to our website, the two websites that we have. So the NADP.com is the National Association of Divorce Professionals. And then the training that I provide, that I teach, is the Certified Divorce Specialist Training, which is the cdstraining.com. So those are the two websites. You can get me through there as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so, so much, Liz. It's been such a pleasure to hear your story and having you here. So thank you. And hopefully we'll have another opportunity to learn more from you. So thank you very much,
Barbara. And may I say big kudos to you for what you're doing and trying to help women leaders. I think that is amazing. More women like you will also change the game for everybody. So thank you.
Beautiful. So we are collaborating. That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Liz. And thank you, everybody, for being